Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's Saturday Night SQL webinar. Are you guys able to see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. First, let me introduce myself. My name is Yi Li, and I'm a BI developer working for a healthcare company based on Houston. First, a big thanks for you, Sarah Huang, the founder of the Saturday Night SQL chapter, for giving me this opportunity to host this meeting. I believe most of our audience are quite familiar with past chapter, but to help those of you who may join this meeting for the very first time, let me go through this past chapter housekeeping slides first. PASS is a global community of data professionals who use the Microsoft data platform. It has around 30 virtual chapters. Each chapter has its own technology focus and webinar schedules. These are the webinars coming up in April. So if you join to become a PASS member, you can register for any webinar you are interested in. Except for the virtual chapter, PASS also provides other activities. One is SQL Saturday. SQL Saturday is a one-day free training organized by the local PASS groups. If you go to the SQL Saturday, you have free training for a whole day and meet your local professionals, and also you have a chance to present your own idea if you like to. Another great activity from PASS is the PASS Summit. It's held once a year around October or November. It's the largest conference. Professionals getting together to exchange ideas, learn from each other, and establish network. And we both know how important to establish your own network. Starting from this year, PASS also offers another channel for you to directly communicate with a top expert, and you can get a chance to ask your question on this PASS Facebook Live. I haven't got a chance to join to experience this, but it sounds very interesting to me. So in short, PASS is very helpful for your career development. So please register to become a PASS member and take advantage of what PASS offers us. Before we start the webinar for tonight, I would like to know how you can raise your question. There's two ways. First one, you can raise your question by click this icon, and then I will be able to see you. So you can be unmuted. Another way, probably is more convenient way, is you can type your question here through this chat window. Then I will read this your question out when the presenter have the chance to answer the question. So now let me switch the gear to tonight's webinar. Our guest speaker for tonight is Sherry Lee. Sherry is an expert at Microsoft Data Platform. She has many years experience with SSIS, SSAS, SSRS, dimensional modeling, and SSAS cube. So whatever you can name it, she has the experience. She also has co-authored two great SSAS MDX cookbook. Personally, I have learned a lot from these two books, and they are really just by me on the shelf when I was working on the multidimensional model. So it's my great honor to have Sherry here to share her first-hand experience of implementing data warehousing business intelligence solution. Now, let's welcome to our speaker, Sherry. Sherry, are you ready for me to pass the ball to you?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Okay. Are you able to see the
All right,
pop-up
I
window?
see when ready, show my screen. So I guess I just need to.
You got it. Yes.
All right, so uh, all right, I have to ask you guys. I have two screens here. I don't know which one do you see. Do you see the one that with two windows or the one with just one window?
I see two window.
Oh, that's not good.
Yeah, probably switch to another monitor.
I need to switch to another monitor here. I have a bigger monitor. All right, now I need to figure out how do I do that. Show screen on main monitor, screen of monitor 2. Let me try that.
Now it's one window.
Okay, sounds good. I figure out. All right. Okay. So what you see right now is just lessons learned sticker notes, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. But let me move this a little bit here. All right. It's been quite a privilege to be invited here to talk to you people about my experience and building a data warehouse. And the data warehouse actually I worked on with my team. We actually put into production 2 years ago. And ever since that, I have been busy maintaining, I guess, enhancing the data warehouse. And the experience I learned is this, basically. No matter how many books you read or how much knowledge you have from reading, you really need experience building a data warehouse. But obviously, I guess you can also learn quite a lot, from people who actually build a data warehouse. That's why I'm here today, to share my experience with you. And hopefully by the end of the seminar, you are going to be more confident, I guess, in yourself building a data warehouse. So who is Sherry Lee? Some of you probably might already got on my blog and know me from there. And my blog is called Sherry Lee, Sherry's BI Corner. And I started the blog about, let's say, probably 8 or 7 years ago, when I just started working with data warehouse and basically using Microsoft BI stacks. And if you get on my blog, you can figure out how to contact me. I have my email address over there, actually. And another way right now you can contact me is through the Twitter handle, although I don't do tweeting quite a lot, but I do get on Twitter a lot to read other people's tweets. And in the last 7 years, while I'm learning and improving my skills, I actually got to know a wonderful person, Tom. And he is actually the actual expert in SSAS and MDX. And I got to know him through a publisher. And we decided that we are going to continue what Tom has started in 2008. He actually had a book on MDX for 2008. That is a 2008 sequel, SSAS. But for the version of SSAS 2012 and also 2016, we expanded on the original book and added few more chapters, especially in the 2016 version. And if you bought the original 2012 version, I highly encourage you to also take a look at the 2016 version, because it has 2 brand new chapters, and one chapter, I added one chapter, and Tom also added one chapter. The chapter I added is basically focused on how to use MDX to do reporting. And part of it touches how you can use SSRS, although the chapter is not limited to just using SSRS, but you can find a lot of good examples there, how to write MDX and query data, get data out of your cube using MDX. And Tom also added chapter, and it's a little bit more advanced, and I'm still learning what he tried to say there. Besides my work, just a little bit information about me. I am actually a very how do I say, I consider working with data sometimes a little bit boring, so I do a lot of work outside of office. So I volunteer a lot, and I volunteer in a lot of organizations, but one of them I volunteered quite a bit, several times a year. It's called a Project Connect. This is an organization that they actually go out to help homeless people, and also sometimes the homeless veterans, to provide them services. And I enjoyed, working with my guests, and besides that, I hike a lot. If you come to Phoenix, welcome to hike with me. It's a great activity, and you don't spend a penny. You get the benefit of exercising and being with your friends. I also combine my activity of volunteerism with my love of golf. And I actually volunteer for some, local here in Phoenix, in fundraising activities on golf course. This is the beautiful Superstition Mountain Golf Course in Mesa, Arizona. And other things I do outside of work is I participate in dragon boat competition, and this is a kind of an international organization. Actually, if you are into dragon boat, you can find your local chapters, a local organization actually. I'm also a very avid reader, and also quite a often traveler. And if you guys, if you ever travel to Greece, you will know that you will recognize this picture. And so that's a lot about me. And this is the picture I had with some of the people I got to know through PASS last year. And every time I look at this picture, I smiled for one reason. That is because I counted there are actually 10 women here, 9 guys. So I'm so happy to see that there are more women. I don't know in reality or not, but here, at least in this picture, I have more women in the IT world than men. The presentation I'm going to do, basically, I divided it into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, actually 7 sections, but I'm only going to touch just the first 5. I guess that we just don't have enough time to talk about the rest of it. The first is the kind of lessons I learned at a very high level. As a matter of fact, everything I'm going to say here is at a 3,000 level, 3,000 meters high, looking down on the ground. There will be no code snippets, there will be no demos, there will be no scripts, there will be no SQL MDX scripts at all. It's just the lessons, truly the lessons I learned from building a data warehouse. And the second section I'm going to talk a little bit about will be the analysis services. I guess when you talk about using SQL, I mean Microsoft BI stacks to build a data warehouse, you can't get away with not talking about the SSAS, and of course the ETL. And the last two sections is a little bit weird. I'm going to talk a little bit about date and also a little bit about a style. This is a style about a personal style. You as a data warehouse developer, you have to have a style. And the getting data out of data warehouse, I'm going to leave that out, and that's another whole section and a lot to talk about there. And the editing there, that is also an interesting topic, I think, but that is a topic I'm not going to talk about today. I consider building a data warehouse, it's kind of like writing a book. And editing is something you do a lot when you write a book. And same as building a data warehouse. Putting your data warehouse into production, that's not the end of it. Actually, it's the starting. So you do a lot of editing, and in our terminology, I guess people use the words like maintain and modification. But in the analogy of writing a book, I use the word editing here. All right. So let's talk about the roadmap. For everything we do, I guess, especially building a data warehouse, it's a quite complex system, and it touches everything, almost everything you can think of in terms of data. Where you're going to get the data, and how the data is changing, and how the data should be transformed, how the data should be transported from system to system. And it has a lot of things to consider. So the first thing, I guess, from my experience, is that I ask myself, what is a data warehouse? And maybe the sentence here is a little bit too abstract, but in the end, after 2 years, I guess, building the data warehouse, and also spent another 2 years to editing the data warehouse, I find that sometimes the very high level sentence like this, transform data into a format for fast, easy access by business people to perform deep but efficient analysis. It seems too abstract, but when you think about it, it's just very practical. The reason I say that is because from the very beginning of when you build a data warehouse, there are a lot of things can put your project at a stop. One of the things that can put your project at a risk is what we call the data latency. And if you read the first sentence there, you know that the data latency actually is something that's not in sync with what we call the easy or fast access, right? Data latency is a time between the data, the source data becomes available, and the data becomes available to business. So from that time, it's how long you are going to get the data and process the data and make it available to business. That is the data latency. If it's too long, I know that some of the systems take, I guess, I heard some people told me that their system can take a week to process their data warehouse. And in our system, we actually process our data warehouse, I should say a cube, once a day. So that basically means that we have data available for the prior day, not the intraday. And I know some business require intraday data, meaning that I want data in the last 5 minutes or last 30 minutes. In our case, we choose kind of a middle ground. We give business data from the prior day. That gives us enough time to process our data and make it available, and also to meet the service level agreement we have with the business. I guess another thing that the first lesson learned I put in here, it says that data warehousing actually emerged as the engine of data analytics. And interesting that this is also an interesting point, because now when people talk about data analytics, we are really talking, a lot of people are talking about not traditional data warehouse. People are talking about more modern techniques. You know, people talk about Apache Spark, they talk about a Hadoop, and that is actually the primary reason that last year I went to PASS Summit. And because after so many years working with data and working with SQL, Microsoft BI stacks, I often ask myself if my skill is obsolete, and why should I continue to work within the Microsoft platform? Should I learn something new? And I did a lot of reading and also went to PASS Summit. And what I learned here is that SQL, obviously, SQL, if you look at the on the right side hand of my presentation here, the timeline of how the data warehouse evolves from 1980s all the way to 2020 in the future. And currently we are, I guess, somewhere at 2015, where there is introduction of cloud data warehouse. And also even before that, we got into between 2005 and 2010, and the Hadoop and the NoSQL technology already used by a lot of a large corporation. And now at the point of after 2015, so where does Microsoft BI stacks stand? And also, where's this traditional, what we call this, some people call it the legendary, or some people call it traditional data warehouse technology? Where does it stand? You know, does it have a position? I mean, is it worth continue learning? What I learned actually from all my readings and from going to PASS Summit last year is that yes, absolutely. And it turned out that Hadoop or Spark and all the so-called modern data analytics platform actually come out pretty short in terms of business intelligence and the data analytics. And I'm not going to get into the debate on this, but I guess my answer for that, based on my own research, is that our skills is not obsolete. Keep going, and this is a great area for people like you and me to continue to be in this profession. All right, so now let's get into what is the traditional data warehouse. Um, in the diagram on the left side of this diagram, what I want to point out here, this is not new, I guess, to a lot of us. But what I want to say here is pay attention to that staging area. When you have a data sources, and after that you get your data, and most of the time you would put it into a staging area. This is actually not the staging area that most people are thinking about during the ETL. During the ETL process, you would definitely have a staging area to manipulate your data, but this is not that I'm talking about. The staging area is where this is the where that when you get the data from all kinds of sources, you somehow have to transform your data into what you called, the conforming dimensions or the fact tables. And where do you do that? That is the staging area. It is actually a database. And it's a persistent database where that we actually transform the data into our conforming dimension. Dimensions, very common dimensions like employees, date, time, and or whatever the dimensions that in your business. And so this staging area is a very, I guess you can choose not to have it, but in our design, that is something that we made conscious decision. We are going to have a staging area, and to do that. On the right-hand side, there's really, I guess most of us are familiar with this diagram too. But what I want to, from how I interact with other developers over time, I want to point out is that if you are new to building a cube, sometimes it can be confusing. What is the relational part of it? What is the cube side of it? And this diagram is very clear. The star schema data warehouse is actually a relational database. Although it has the multi-dimensional part of it, you are building the dimensions there, and then you're building the fact tables there, but it's still a relational database. And people usually call that star schema data warehouse. And on the right-hand side, if you build your cube using analysis services, that is what we usually called a multi-dimensional database. So if you look at all this, it's quite amazing, how much work you have to do. So loading data into data warehouse requires highly technical individuals. And when I say highly technical individuals, that's you and me. And we are the people who actually learned enough tricks, I guess, to load the data and to build a multi-dimensional database and to understand the ecosystems of the whole thing. So if I go on, I guess the next thing I want to mention is about this book. Again, this book, I guess a lot of you are very familiar with it. This is the first book I bought, and this is the book this is not a book that you can read from cover to cover, I guess. This is the book I use it as kind of like a go-to book when I have some I need to understand a certain terminology. This is not a book that written specifically for developers. And so if you read it, sometimes you might say, I already know this, or I don't know what he's talking about. But from this book, basically, I read a book, I read it, and this is from this book, I understand what is the surrogate key. and why it's important for building a data warehouse. So if you don't have this book right now, I probably don't want to recommend that you go ahead and buy it, because right now if you Google on internet, there's so much information out there. You will if you Google what is a surrogate key, why is it important for data warehouse, what exactly is surrogate, how do I generate a surrogate key, you will get tons of information from this. So if you don't have it, don't bother to buy the book, and you can get a lot of information from internet. Another thing I learned from this book is basically that Dr. Ralph Kimball basically said that 80% of the data warehouse work is ETL. And I think before I started, building the data warehouse, this is something that I really don't have a real feeling of it. But after 4 years, this is so true. I know that this is a true statement. And 80% of the time, you are going to spend as a developer, you are going to spend the time in doing ETL. And I talk about a surrogate key, and here, I don't know if I'm exaggerating here or not, but the concept of a surrogate key is obviously a very, very important concept when you build a data warehouse. And I might exaggerate a little bit as the single most important concept. Why it's important? There are many reasons why it's important. But one of the reasons that it's very, very important is that using the surrogate key makes it possible to track historical data in data warehouse. And this actually touches what we call the slow changing dimension, or the type 2 dimensions. And there are 3 types of slow change dimensions: type 1, type 2, type 3, according to Dr. Ralph Kimball. But it's the type 2 dimension that he was talking about. Using the surrogate key to implement it makes data warehouse to be able to track historical data. And again, I'm not going to talk too much about it, and a lot of you guys are probably already familiar with the concept. I'm here just to emphasize on that. The next another book I actually bought this book. Is called a SSAS Schema from Christopher Anderson. Again, I don't want to urge you to go ahead and buy the book, but to me, when I read the book, it really gave me a lot of clear picture of what exactly a SSAS Schema data warehouse is. Again, it's for people who initially, building a cube. Some of the people don't realize that before you even build a cube, you need to have a SSAS Schema relational database. All right. So here, I guess I'm using the same diagram again. Just a little bit of terminology here. The cube is also typically called a multidimensional database. Again, this just touches a little bit about the terminology. And I'm going to stop right here, and we can have some discussion here. And if you guys have questions, this is the time. And by the way, I forgot to mention that in the beginning, as far as the questions at the QA session goes, I'm going to leave time after every section and for discussion. And like I said in the beginning, this is not a demo presentation. So any questions or even experience based on how you work with a data warehouse, and everything is welcome here.
And Sherry, so far I didn't see any questions yet.
I don't see any question from the chat window. Is there any question from the question window?
No.
I don't see any.
If there's any, maybe we can just go ahead and
Okay.
continue.
All right. Good. All right. Okay. So the second section I'm going to touch a little bit will be just the two slides. I'm going to talk a little bit about analysis services.
Hey, Sherry.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt. I saw two questions coming in.
Oh, okay.
Did
All
you
right.
see it?
Yeah, okay, my question window is very, very small, but I can read it. Okay, the first question is, what is a fact table?
Okay, what is a fact table?
Right.
All right, let's go back here. What is a fact table? Did I have it here? Okay, yep. A fact table is mainly made of numeric metrics. When you think about how business sees your data, and fact table is where that all the numeric metrics go there. And for example, in our environment, the number of calls handled by bankers, or what is the rate of what is the average handle time when bankers, taking calls from customers, and those are the all numeric. I emphasize that numeric, and because those are the actual facts of a business. And besides actually the fact table, besides those numeric numbers, you actually have keys that point to the dimensions tables. That is where the surrogate key comes in actually. And you don't use, we use numeric. And if you read how a surrogate key is generated, you know that we all prefer using numbers, right? Okay, so those are the keys that will allow you to join your fact tables with your dimensions, and your dimensions are the concepts that your business will slice and dice the numerical numbers. For example, if your business leaders look at average handle time, they want to know they want to know which site and which banker or what date that the average handle time is defined for. And those are the attributes you build into your dimensions, not in your fact tables. In your fact tables, you only have two things. One is the surrogate keys that you join to the dimension tables, and the numeric numbers that represents business metrics.
Okay. The second question is, are you also built data mart for your project?
Data mart.
Right.
The concept of a data mart varies a lot. It is in our environment. If you can call the whole data warehouse, our data warehouse for our group, you can call it a data mart, because it's not for the entire enterprise for the company, right? We are only just the one group in our company, and we actually consume data from upstream from many different sources from other organizations within our company. And data mart, who asked this question, and can you elaborate on what you, like I said, it varies a lot, and do you have some specific things you have in mind?
I'm not able to see anybody. The person who asked us a question, could you raise your hand?
Let me turn on Paul. I'm going to turn on your mic. Let me find out. And you continue to answer the other questions and.
Okay. Yep.
So the bunch of question now. Okay. The other one. Okay. Is it necessary to write business logics to the fact table? Because the business logic very complex, have
Okay.
joint dimension many times, very slow queries.
Okay. There's one slide. Did I mention? Actually, I can go back to that first question. What is a fact table, right? And also the slide where I showed a staging area. Where is it? You don't write business logic in, or especially complex business logics in your fact table. Not even in the star schema data warehouse, I should call it the data schema database or the relational database. The only place where you should write complex business logics, I guess I should say probably in two places. One is in this staging area, or I should say the staging database. That is where that you need to finish your joins. If you need to join the sum table multiple times, or to somehow figure out who did what date, or things like that. That is where that you should build it. And another place that where that you might want to write some business logics will be in probably in your fact tables, but only in terms of calculations. And I mentioned that in the fact tables, you have all your numeric numbers, right? And sometimes you need to calculate an average. You need to calculate a sum. You need to calculate the difference between two numbers. And those are not complex calculations, I would call them. But those are the two places, I guess, you can write your business logics. But if you ask me if I should write complex business logics in the fact tables, definitely no.
Okay, Sarah, I have very limited window to say the question. Could you read the question, please? Yeah. Somehow my window is very small. I can only see one line.
Okay. So there's another one by Yan Wan. Both data warehouse and cube multi-dimensional database. Both data warehouse and a cube are called multi-dimensional databases.
Okay. Is that a question?
Yeah, they just want to know if those are called.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said. Typically, people call a cube a multi-dimensional databases. Yes.
And another one is the
actually, I should mention that in our group we call it OLAP. And that's another typical name that people call cube. Yeah, OLAP.
Yep.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Another one is if both are multi-dimensional database, what are the differences? And meaning that the data warehouse and the cube.
Sorry, I think there's a little bit probably misunderstanding here. Multi-dimensional database is cube, and the star schema is the relational database.
Yeah, so
We don't call the star schema, we don't call it multidimensional.
correct. I think it. I guess there was a little bit of confusion.
Yep.
Sarah, before the next questions, I turn on the poll, and I think Paul is ready for questions because he also posted the other 3 follow-up questions.
Yeah, go ahead, Paul.
Okay, Sarah, now I can see all the questions.
Okay, cool.
Figure out a way to open the expanded window.
Yeah. Hi, Paul. Can you speak? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Paul. Yeah.
Yep. Go ahead, Paul. We can hear you.
We lost the Paul?
No, he's there, but it looks like he mute himself. Okay. Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Great. Thanks. In terms of the data mart, did you build any data marts for any subject-specific analysis, or is it just one data warehouse and you did your analysis within the data warehouse?
So you equate data warehouse with a business subject? Is that what you are referring to?
Oh, normally for data marts, we build data marts for subject-specific information. So therefore, we separate it from the data warehouse. So therefore, I was just curious to know if you also did that approach, or if you just only had just one big data warehouse.
Oh, I see what you mean. No, we don't build data mart. We build data warehouse, and the reason I say that is because we our group actually is responsible for building the data platform, I should say, for the bank, not for the entire bank business, only just a portion of it. But we do have a lot of subjects, and not just the one. We support a lot of not just the business operations. We support analytics. We also support performance reviews and also bankers management. So we support a lot of different business areas, and we don't build them one by one. We build one big data warehouse. So in that sense, I would say we build a data warehouse, not data mart.
Okay.
I have a question to follow this.
Mm-hmm.
So, how big is your cube now?
I know people are going to ask that question. I specifically don't want to ask that question. I thought about it, and I would only say that our data is huge, and I know that some people worry about both in terms of the relational side of the performance and also the petition and the processing on the cube. But I can only say that we get by, and we are doing good, and we have a lot of people are doing, especially our operational side of the people. They are doing a lot of enhancements to make sure that we can process the cube in time and meet the service level agreement with business.
So Sherry, go ahead. Okay, Sherry, continue the Paul's question and also Ease. Do you partition the table on the data warehouse side? Okay.
Yeah, we do. We do it on both sides. Yep. In the relational and also on the cube. Yep.
And also, I guess earlier when Paul asked that question, you can build a cube based on a data mart, not just based on data warehouse, correct?
I guess I answer Paul that we built a data warehouse just because I think that because our data warehouse encompasses many different business areas.
Mm-hmm. But you can build a cube based on data data mart. Just in theory, not necessarily from your experience.
Right, I guess.
Okay, here we have another question from Rose Lin. Is the business only needs operational if the business only needs operational report? SIMs don't need a data warehouse. Is it correct?
So the question, I need to understand the question, is if business only needs operational reporting?
Right.
So what's the question?
SIMs, then they don't need a data warehouse. Is it?
I see. Let me think of this question. Data warehouse is not something that you will build just by one person, for sure. If they just need 5, 10 reports, pretty well defined, or even 20 reports, I guess, very well defined, and you have very limited data sources, and you query the speed you generate your data is fast enough, and you can handle all that just in the relational database. Yeah, I guess you don't have to. You don't have to. But that is a very good question. The reason that our group actually built this data warehouse is because I would say probably 2 reasons. One, we did have a legacy cube. Even just 8 years ago when I joined this group, I started to work with this legacy cube right away, and I see so many issues with it. First, it's just designed horrible. And also back in the early version of analysis services, it allows people to build subcube inside a big cube, which is a horrible idea. And it's basically going to make each cube independent of other cubes. And that defeats the whole purpose of building a data warehouse. It was a horrible design and also very, very slow. And then I guess our group, but we have to decide, do we continue making enhancements on the cube, or do we start from scratch? And we decided on the latter. We cannot meet the demands, the business reporting demands, using just the a menu reporting, or even SSRS reports. It just is so many reports and the business need. So the solution really is that to build a cube and then allow, I should say data warehouse, to allow business to build their analytics on top of it. So it gives the business a lot of freedom actually to how they want to slice the data and dice the data, filter the data, and build analytic model on top of the data. So it gives them so much freedom. So to answer this question, if the business only needs operational reporting, do you need a data warehouse? I would just say probably no. Just because that you are going to invest so much into building the data warehouse, and also later maintaining the data warehouse, and the business don't get a lot of a benefit from it.
Okay, they have a follow-up questions from Rose. It's about, so don't need aggregate data. that's her mean. So you mentioned don't need that.
Yeah, she meant by when using the just the operational data, you probably don't need to aggregate the data at different level, because cube by cube you can aggregate data at different level. I guess that's what she meant.
Yeah. Okay, so then, yeah, the next questions start from Rose. E, can you start it? Is it necessary to write all business logic to the fact table? Because the business logic is very complex, have joined dimension many times.
I think we Sherry already answered that question before.
Okay, so the next one is by Mike.
Yeah, did you see that one? There are a lot of data in free data formatting or database. That one.
By Mike Q. Okay.
Right.
Okay. First, I think we already spent a lot of time answering this section.
Yeah, that's what I'm going to say. Yeah, I
Yeah.
have about another half of the slides.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
How about we move to the next session, then we'll answer questions.
Oh, sorry. You guys hear my dog barking, right?
A little bit.
Maybe Doug wants to present.
Oh no, just hold on 1 second.
Okay. Mike, we all the audience, we probably will not able to answer each question, but there's two ways we can get your question answered.
All right, sorry about that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
right.
Just give me 1 minute, Sherry.
Okay.
So if we are not able to get all your question answered during this session, either you can send a question to Sherry or you can send a question to us. We make a total list, then we'll send it to Sherry. So we'll get
that's a good idea.
answered. Okay, go ahead, Sherry.
All right, that's a good idea. All right. All right, we were talking about analysis of services. I'm going to start with the word semantic when we talk about analysis services. The reason that I started with this is that just recently I had the experience interacting with a coworker who is new to analysis services. I try to explain to him exactly how to build a cube. It turned out that I just didn't get my point across. So I thought about it. How do I explain this? So I thought about it, and I think this is probably a good starting point. When you read what is exactly analysis services cube, it will talk about a cube is something that allow you to build a semantic model of data. So what is a semantic model? It is basically the word semantic means that is something related to, the meaning. What's the meaning of a data warehouse or study of a meaning? What is exactly that means? Well, to me, what that really means is go back to this. Go back to this diagram of a data warehouse. The fact table is in the middle of it, and then there are a lot of then you join your fact tables with your dimension tables. That is really something that's been built into your cube. So when you are building the cube, there's no data in the cube. There's only the semantic model in it. So in another word, people tell you there's no need to join tables inside a cube. That's exactly why. Because the cube is aware of all the relationships. There's no need to do any joins anymore. And the reason that I guess I started from here is that when I try to explain this to my coworker, and he keep asking me to build another cube, I said, no, we don't build another cube. We don't even need to build another measure group because it's already, it knows the relationships, it knows the model, it knows everything about your data. It's not your data in it. It knows about your data. So that's why I started from there. And the circles that goes around here is basically mine learning also experience by using analysis services. Unlike just the building a table or building a database, there's a certain workflow when you work with analysis services. And the workflow, I see that is you start from building the model, the semantic model, using analysis services, and most likely you are using the Visual Studio, right? Creating a project, a multi-dimensional database model project. And once you build projects in there, that is where you build all the relationships and all the so-called semantic model. And then you deploy the model as a database. And remember, at this point, there's no data in your model. It's just the model. There's no data. But you need to deploy that model as a database to your server. And here, in the second point of the workflow, I specifically just use the word deploy, not the word process. The reason is because, like I said, there's no data there. So what do you process? Nothing to process, really. And you shouldn't process your cube inside your multidimensional project. And I see a lot of developers making mistakes doing that. Because by default, when you open up analysis services, every time you save something, you change something, it's going to ask you, do you want to process your data? Say no every time it asks you that. And as a matter of fact, there's a way you can disable that. You can say that don't process my cube. When I deploy, when I change, making changes, all I want is just deploy it to the server, the model to the server, nothing else. Once you are done with that, and the next step you do is to set up a recurrent data process. I do this mostly using SQL jobs, and I script out and I from the user interface, and then change the scripts. It's basically XML scripts, and you can change it. The database names, the object names, and then you set up a recurring SQL job basically to do that. The next thing in your workflow is to assigning permission. And in our environment, we do have people, we put people into different different groups. Different groups have different access. Some people have a read write, and some people only have a read, and some people have a read write to certain data elements. Some people have, can see everything. And once you have all that, basically your OLAP cube is going to be your single source of truth. And this is where people, business people, analytical people, they are going to use this, whether you tell them or not. They are going to use the data they see in your data warehouse as a comparison point. And every time they see data from other sources, they are going to use this as the single truth, source of truth to compare the data to other sources. So that's the workflow of building a multi-dimensional data model project, or OLAP. Here, I'm repeating that same same sentence again, to transform data into a format for fast, easy access by business people to perform deep but efficient analysis. What I really mean by that is, why do we talk about the semantic model in the analysis services? But another wonderful thing the analysis services did for us is to pre-aggregate your data. To me, that is the one single feature that allow data to have a fast and easy access by business. Many years ago, I guess, before I joined the bank, I actually worked with another financial institute, and they started to build data warehouse. And at that point, I guess I did not really have a fully understanding of what exactly a cube or like a cube will do for you. I only thought that, once you have a cube, you don't need to write the SQL anymore. You don't need to write, anybody can get the data out of it, right? And which is true. And the reason that is true is because your data is actually pre-aggregated. And a lot of times when we write SQL, what we do is to aggregate data. By that, I mean that you have data at a very detailed level, right? Each banker, each moment, each interval, they have a certain business metrics measured against their performance. But a lot of times, business wanted to see the business metrics at per manager level. I want to say under this manager, under this line of a business, I want to see this type of, metrics. So where did that data come from? If we write a SQL, and you know that we have to write a lot of, group by and sum and sometimes averaging or running total and all that